Hey, all my crafty people out there. My name is Stephanie. If this is your first time here, I upcycle clothing, usually thrifted items, things I found in American Thrift, Goodwill. And today we are going to go back to my basics. And my basics are denim. So I have a pair of Old Navy denim jeans. They're 100% cotton, so they're going to fray really well. They are, I think they would consider boyfriend jeans. They're not terribly flattering. They're kind of baggy, but that's kind of good for what I want to do. It is good for what I want to do. I am going to be decorating these with stars and possibly moons. We're going to see how it goes. These are little wooden stars that I got at Hoblob. They're two different sizes. And I thought these would be easier to trace around than tracing inside of like a stencil. So these are going to work really good. And we're going to put behind the stars and maybe even around the stars, who knows. I have some lace. Now this is the bottom half of what I believe was a wedding dress. It was donated. There was no big loss or anything like that. And I've cut the skirt completely open. But when I got it, I had to remove probably a good 2 or 3 inches off the bottom already because it had hay in it, which down here, barn weddings are pretty popular. So I'm assuming that's what had happened to it. So let's go see what we can do with some lace, some denim, and some stars. All right, this is the beginning of the basic idea. I'm sorry, I have allergies and they're crushing me. And I kind of want the 3 stars on the front, and I want them spaced, just about like this, a little differently. I don't want them to be like that. And then on the back, I'm going to put stars on both the pockets. I tried the crescent moon. Didn't look right. So I'm going to put stars on both the pockets. And again, I'm going to take them off from the bottom down. And then I thought maybe, I know 4 is not my usual number, but I thought I'd put 4 stars on the back. And I was able to pry the little one off. And after I looked at it and tried it, I think this will work on the back. So I think that will work. So I've got 4 here and 5 really if you count the one at the top of the pocket. So we're not completely off on the odd numbers. Okay. All right. So next thing we got to do, got a preliminary idea, and like these aren't set in stone. They'll shift a little as we change things up and sew. Next thing is our big bad boys. We got the seam rip. And like I said, I want to try and save this cuff. I don't want to open it up. I just want to open from here to here so I can sew it back down. And I am going to sew it back the way it is now. I don't want the seam to be out. I don't really care for that look. I mean, it looks cute on some boho things, but it just doesn't work for me. Not in this particular design. It probably would in others. So I'm going to pick a spot. We're going to be brave. And I don't want to go past that nice satin stitching. And you know what? I think I am going to turn them inside out because they'll be easier to seam rip from the inside out. And we'll just... Now some people would just cut this seam and, because they are baggy, and do them back up. I don't want to cut them. I don't like cutting the seam. I like salvaging that. And here is that big satin stitch right there. So, and we don't want to go anywhere near our pocket. So I'm going to come down. There's a little seam here. I'm going to come down about right here. And I'm going to start ripping slowly but surely. And all I really have to do is get that one seam open because on the side it's got the single seam. Now the inside, the inseam has that double seam, and I don't want to go there. So this will take me a little bit. I'll fast forward through some of it if you really want to watch a crazy person seam rip. But the idea is to get it open enough of a hole. Let me see. Enough of a hole that you can get the seam ripper down in the hole, and then hopefully get it to take off for you, which sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. It usually depends on how sharp my seam rippers are, and this might be the dull pair. So let's see what they do. If this is a dull pair, I'll stop and go get the sharp pair. We'll try again. All right, I've created a little hole. Use that red tip so you don't rip into anything. And let's see. Oh yeah. That is just satisfying. And again, I'm just going to hold it at one end and push. Don't give it too much push because you can rip your fabric, even good old jeans. But you gotta admit, that's very satisfying. Before we start sewing and remarking, is I'm going to take these pockets off. And like I said, I found my better seam rippers. I'm going to take them from the bottom, and I'm going to leave that big satin stitch up there at the top because that puppy is solid, and that's great because that's what I want. I want these to, I want them to be durable jeans. I want them to last. But regardless of leaving that, I'm going to have to cut out two seams, the double seams that go all the way around the pocket. Now these are well-worn jeans, so those seams should hold in place and shouldn't be too hard to sew back down in their relevant same spots. But I got to find a way to get underneath this first. So I'm just going to try and pick one stitch up and just get a hold under that. I don't want to get the jeans, I just want the stitches. And then I'm also, that's the top stitch that goes on the inside of the pocket. The real stitch I need to get rid of is this bottom one first. And then if I can get them both open, I can run them pretty well together, or one right after the other as far as taking them apart. So this isn't too bad. This is for some reason the stitch on the outside of the seam, on the outside seam, is dark blue. I guess that creates a look of depth in the pocket. But pretty much all I gotta do is get under here. Oh yeah. And just rip it. Rip it. And like that. Good old rip it good. Yeah. And then I'll come back, and after I rip the outside, I'll rip that interior seam and completely take the pocket off. I think I can get into it already, since I created a hole at the top too. Well, not at the top, but on the inside seam. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. Take these pockets. I'm going to leave this stitch up, so I'm going to take them up to here so I can flip them up, put the star on, put them back down. All right, I've taken the pockets off, and to the extent that I leave them connected up here at the very top. And I've got stars drawn on these, and I thought what we would do is we would start here with the experiment of putting the lace behind it. I think it's going to work out just fine, but I want to make sure. So I'm going to go over and sew the lace. I'm going to take a piece of lace, and I cut some shorter pieces. And the lace has kind of got a flowery design, obviously, but I don't think it's going to matter. I'm not worried about what design comes behind the star because the star is so small. So I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to lay my lace underneath my pocket, and I'm going to sew on that white line. And then after I sew on that white line, I'm going to cut about 1/4 inch, maybe a little more, but probably not. 1/4 inch should do it inside that seam line. And the reason I'm leaving that much inside the seam line is that's how much I want to fray. So we're going to rough it up and help it out before I wash them once. So let's go over to the machine, get these 2 pockets done, and I think that'll give us the base of how we're going to get the rest of these done, which, again, I've opened up the sides and only between these 2 points. So we should be able to reach in and put all the stars on the front and the back, or the front and the back that we want to put on, and make our star jeans. So let's go to the machine. Okay, we have our star. And again, I'm just going to be laying this fabric, or this lace, underneath my star. And I could worry about it by maybe, I don't know, cutting a special design out of the lace or something like that. But at this point, I just really want to make sure I cover the star. And I've got so much of the lace, I'm not too worried about being too sparse with it. But I am using the corner edge here and making sure I'm not wasting anything. And we're going to see how difficult it will be to hold on to this. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pin in the middle, and that's going to hold my lace in place. And I'm going to try and sew this without taking all of the markings off. That's what I'm thinking. Sorry, it's been a long day. Time change, not fun. All right, I'm going to pull y'all just a little closer. There you go. That should hold you. And I'm going to start here. And I'm not too worried about back stitching because I'm going to recatch that last part of the seam. The tricky part, well, not the tricky part, but the part you're going to have to pay attention to if you use a shape like this is just making sure that you turn on the angle. Nice and sharp. It actually makes it easier. All right. Turn. So we will just keep turning, and I might fast forward through this. I don't want to torture you, but I'm just going to keep turning. And I'm also checking my lace underneath just to make sure it's still straight. There we go. This actually might not take, yeah, it's going to take some time. I might not fast forward through this first star. We'll see if we can get it. Now I've got to make sure I pull this part that's still connected. Don't want to catch any of the jeans that are still connected from the back end. I'm not looking to sew up my pocket. And pick it up. Make sure my lace is under there and that this is not my feed dogs are having a little trouble with the lace. And of course, I'm gonna have to push through. One day, someday, maybe, I'm going to invest in a wider throat on my machine. Anybody got any recommendations? Send them to me. I don't know. This one I've been using for so long. I love this machine. There's nothing wrong with it. I just would like a wider throat. So if anybody has any that they really love, send me some information about it. Let me know. Tell me why. What's so great about the machine that you love? Any help? It's better than going out and hunting down reviews from people I don't know. I'd rather hear from people that pretty much like the same thing I do, apparently, or have some similar interest, maybe even some similar projects. Alright, one more time I'm going to pick it up and follow back over that first seam just a little bit. There we go. Kind of like a back stitch in forward. Alright, now let's see. Oh, now my lace didn't buckle, so that's good. It's all nice and straight. This pinched a little because it got caught on the needle. But I think it's going to be fine. What we're going to do is we're going to pinch it up. I'll do this over at the table so it'll be easier for you to see, but essentially we're going to cut this star out and leave a 1/4 inch inside the seam allowance to fray. This is a little funky looking, but this was one star. Essentially, I've got the lace sewn in the star pattern, and then I went ahead and sewed the second one, and of course I forgot my scissors because I don't have like 6 pair of these somewhere around. So just going to rough cut this away. You know, when I was rough cutting it, I thought, you know what, that looks kind of cool with it hanging out from underneath there. I could do something different with that. Anyway, ideas always coming. So that one's sewn on too. Now, I don't want to cut the lace, obviously. So I'm going to pull it away from the center of my star. So all I have in my fingers right here is my star. So, and it's the center because I don't want to cut too close to any certain point. Just making sure. I'm going to snip it. All right, and that's going to give me the ability to cut in. I'm going to just try and cut all 5 of the points first. Just cutting into them, not cutting all the way, obviously. So cut this one. And this one. Make sure I'm not cutting the lace, because your scissors can get caught in the lace depending on how sparse it is, you know, if it's real solid or not. So now I've got all the little pieces cut. So now I've just got to kind of trim through it. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to do this. Just going to cut triangles away until I get what I want as far as the amount of fabric left. Like that. Make sure again I don't have much lace. This is not a perfect science, and I'm leaving the little pieces all over the place. But what this is going to do is it's going to give it the opportunity to fray. Like that. And make sure I'm not in the lace. I always get worried when I feel how thick it is, and I worry I've got the lace too. And then I'm going to cut this one. I might cut, and this one I didn't cut apparently. Not all the way. I don't know where I started, but we're going to finish on this side. last one. Okay, now we got all our little pieces cut away. And you see, this is what our star looks like in our pocket. And on the back, we'll go ahead and trim away what we don't need around here. And you can feel where the star is. And I don't need all of this. Now I'm going to cut the top around here. Try to keep my fingers under the lace so I can feel where the seam is. And this little piece up here. I don't need this little jutting out piece. So when I close it up, all I will see, I'll turn it this way for y'all. All I will see is the star. And then this is just my seam, my strings left. And then I can just pick at it. I can get the old brush out. But since this is 100% cotton, I should get a pretty good fraying. I know I say that a lot, but it's hard to find 100% cotton. Everything's got spandex in it today, or something stretchy to give you all that nice extra space in your jeans. Don't get me wrong, girls. I like some spandex in my jeans. But if I want something to fray and get fuzzy, then it's got to be cotton. Okay, I've said this many times. The good part about jeans and shirts is they got 2 legs and 2 arms, which makes it easier to get started on something and then experiment. So I have put 3 stars down the back of the jeans, small, large, or medium, large, and medium. I still have obviously the ones on the pockets. And I've put 3 stars on the front. And now we're going to do the same thing to the other leg. And I'm going to show you, it is the exact same process that I used for the pockets. But I've kind of perfected it, or at least made it easier for myself. So I cut a piece of lace that will cover the star. And the best way to check that is to put star on top of it and think, oh yeah, well that gets it. So this piece of lace will definitely cover this star. Now, it's open. One other thing. Lace, in general, has 2 sides. This is a smooth side, and this has the ridges. And I believe that the ridges are the right side, the one you want facing out. Or at least they're the ones I want because they have the texture. So, what I do is I put it in my hand, and I put it under here, and because it has those ridges and that texture, it makes it easy to feel and make sure that it's on all of my points. And then I just take some pins, and I put one in between each point, like that, or each 2 points, I should say. And like this. Now, this is a star. And this is what I have found to be the easiest way to do the star. You could be doing tulips, hearts, whatever, whatever shape you want to do. And then I'll put one in the middle, making sure that I don't poke my own hand, which, by the way, I've done enough of that too. So I can tell that this comes all the way to this point. This is the only point I'm kind of concerned about because it's real close to the edge. So I want to make sure I pull my seam out. So I can feel it under each point, so I know it's in place. You can look underneath, but it really doesn't tell you anything other than where the pins are. So I take this to the machine. I go along the white lines with my stitching. Then I cut a 1/4 inch in. Oh, I cut the middle and then cut each point, and then I trim it to where it's about a 1/4 inch from each seam. And then I'm going to wash them, obviously, and fray them. So I'm going to put 3 stars on the front and 3 stars on the back. Okay, I think I've got all my stars on. Of course, we know about the pockets. And there's 3 stars down the back on each leg, because I like odd numbers. And there's 3 on the front on each leg in different positions. They're not exactly the same, but they're spread out across. Now these are going to fuzz, which is what I want it to do. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to the machine and I'm going to sew back down my pockets. That's the first thing I'm going to do, because I'll have to be able to get into these to do that, and this might be necessary, the open leg. Once I finish that, I'm going to turn them inside out, and I'm going to sew that seam back together exactly the way it was. I don't want it to be any different. I kind of want it to look, you know, like I didn't take it apart. So that's the plan. All right, more I look at it, I guess the side seam really won't matter for the pocket, but I still don't want to close it up till I get the pockets back down. So we're going to start with pocket number 1, and I'm just going to pick a side, doesn't matter. And I'm going to sew the inside seam first, and I want to make sure I get it lined up and I don't have any of that blue, that deep indigo blue showing, which means the pocket's been moved. You know, I want to try and preserve it as is. It's not a big deal if it does. It'll probably look cool if it does. Look like it's been moved, that is. So we're just going to do a little back stitching here. And I'm stitching over the seam that's still there. And I am going right along with the seam, the original seam. Nothing out of the ordinary. Now, if you wanted to take your pockets off completely and leave that blue open space, some people like that. That's cool. I just use my pockets too much. I mean, I really do. I don't carry a purse, and I just carry my phone with a little wallet kind of built into the holder. So pockets are important. All right, it's going to take me a little bit. I might fast forward through this, but I am zipping through the pockets, and then we're going to sew up the sides. Okay, everybody, we're on the last leg. No pun intended, but you know, it works. I'm going to sew up this side seam, and I want to show you this. This is what the lace looks like on the back after I've kind of hacked at it to put it in the somewhat semi-cut state. This is very soft lace. It's not going to affect my leg at all, not to mention these are baggy jeans, but it might be something you want to take into account if it's going to be up against your skin. So this is not going to bother me, but a stiffer lace might. So I've turned them inside out, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this seam that was already here and put these bad boys back together just as they were. And after that, we're going to try them on. But I didn't think you needed to see me just run this seam. I'm going to start it up here at the top probably. But it should not be uneven, obviously, because we took it apart with the top and the bottom still attached. So seam this up on each side, and let's go try it on. All right, everybody. I finally got my star-studded jeans done. They are not anything fancy. They're just cool and fun. The stars add a little interest. Now, if I wanted to add more interest, I wouldn't have to cut the seam open. I could do some bleaching or some painting, whatever craziness I wanted to do. But at this point, I'm pretty happy with them, and I'm going to start washing them and getting them to fray and fuzz up. So, if you like this kind of content, like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you're doing. And, just try it out. Do something different. Have fun. So I will catch y'all on the flip side of our next project.